Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to mentally transport yourself back to the dusty, bronze-filled battlefields of the ancient Near East. Really picture it. You know, the swirling desert sand, the deafening clash of metal, the rise and fall of these just immense empires. We're talking about an era where nations like Assyria, who were notorious for their completely ruthless sieges, and Babylon, with those magnificent impenetrable walls, literally worshipped sheer physical might. In this ancient landscape, it was pretty simple. Whoever had the sharpest iron weapons and the most war chariots was the undisputed winner. It was a world entirely 100% defined by physical strength.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because the scriptures challenge this worldview entirely. Before we can even begin to study the legendary heroes of the text, like the judges who brought deliverance out of total chaos, or David's famous 30 mighty men, or even the apostles fighting invisible battles, we have to completely drop our worldly perspective. We have to answer this fundamental question: who is the true warrior? It sounds like a super simple question, right? But the answer is going to completely flip our understanding of history and of strength itself.
Section 1. The Myth of Power.
To truly grasp the biblical concept of a warrior, we really need to experience a massive paradigm shift. Just look at the ancient world's definition of a winner on the left. It's a culture entirely built on chariots, iron weapons, and brutal physical dominance. But contrast that with the biblical warrior on the right. Notice how it's totally blank for now? We literally have to unlearn what the ancient empires taught us about how power is measured, and more importantly, who exactly holds it, before we can even start filling in that blank space.
Section 2. Defining true warriors.
So, to find our definition, we need to go directly to the original Hebrew manuscripts and see what the text actually says about strength. The word we're looking at is Gibber. It's derived from the Hebrew root verb gabar, which basically means to be strong, to prevail, or to be mighty. And in the Old Testament alone, this specific word is used over 150 times to denote a warrior. Now, worldly kings of the time constantly boasted of being a Gibor because of their own innate strength and military conquests. They literally carved it into their giant stone statues. But the biblical text takes this exact same word and applies it with a radically different underlying assumption.
And here is the massive plot twist, or I guess the hidden prerequisite. In the scriptural narrative, true power is endowed. It is not innate. Acknowledging your own profound weakness is the absolute starting point for becoming a Gibor. Your capability isn't something you're just born with, and it's certainly not something you get by lifting heavier stones or forging better armor. You simply cannot be a biblical warrior until you first admit, honestly, that you are fundamentally weak on your own.
This crucial point is captured perfectly by the prophet Zechariah. He says, "Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit." I mean, that one sentence completely unravels the ancient world's entire script. True divine capability only begins when human capability reaches its absolute limit. Think about it. When a person runs completely out of their own strength, that is the exact moment God's strength is activated. We see this historical irony play out time and time again in the text, where God deliberately selects the most unlikely candidates. Take Gideon, for example. He's essentially a cowardly farmer hiding out in a wine press, just trying to thresh some wheat without getting caught by the enemy. Or look at David, a young shepherd boy who literally couldn't even fit into King Saul's oversized armor. By ancient military standards, these guys had zero physical qualifications, none. Yet they are the ones called mighty warriors, simply to demonstrate that the power belongs entirely to God, not to the human vessel.
Section 3. The divine warrior.
So, if human strength is merely endowed, if it's just a gift that's handed down to us, who's actually the ultimate source of this power? Well, the answer is found right there in the book of Exodus, chapter 15, verse 3. The Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name. Moses actually sang this right after the miraculous parting of the Red Sea. It anchors the core Israelite belief that God doesn't need swords or spears. Unlike the pagan nations who actually believed their gods fought alongside their physical chariots, Israel knew their God uses the wind as his messenger and fire as his servant. From striking the Egyptian firstborn to literally hurling hailstones at the Amorites, the outcome of the battle relies on him and him alone.
Picture a giant scale in your mind for a second. On one side, we've got all the swords and chariots. On the other side, faith and obedience. In God's army, a warrior isn't weighed by their military hardware. The true weight of a warrior is measured by the depth of their faith and their obedience to the divine warrior. The scale tips based on trust, not iron. That is the true currency of biblical warfare.
Let's look at how this builds in actual practical application. We see Joshua marching in total obedience around the fortified city of Jericho for 7 straight days. No battering rams, no siege towers, just walking and trusting. Then we see David trusting 5 smooth stones from a brook to take down a heavily armored giant. True warriors completely surrender their own agency to God's incredibly unorthodox battle plans. They just trust that the ultimate victory belongs entirely to the Lord. They don't try to outsmart the enemy, they simply obey their commander.
Section 4. Your modern battlefield.
Now, let's bring this home for a minute, because this isn't just some dusty ancient history lesson. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, but we don't exactly face Amorites or literal giants with bronze swords today. And you're right, but did the battles actually end? Not at all. The concept of the Gibber hasn't expired. Our modern Goliaths have just shifted. They've moved from the ancient deserts to our stressful, totally overwhelming office desks. They've moved to our dining tables, filled with broken or strained family relationships. And honestly, they rage in the depths of our own minds, where we're constantly fighting internal anxiety, fear, and self-doubt. We are absolutely still on a battlefield, every single day. But here is the absolutely crucial takeaway I want you to remember from this explainer. You are a chosen vessel of the divine warrior. You don't have to grit your teeth. You don't have to white-knuckle your way through life, relying on your own exhausted, depleted strength. The very same Lord of hosts who fought for ancient Israel, the exact same God who parted the Red Sea and brought down the walls of Jericho, is standing right beside you today. He's the ultimate fighter. You are simply his instrument. So, I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. How will you let the divine warrior fight your battle today? What are you holding on to so tightly that you need to finally surrender to his unconventional battle plan? As you apply this ancient truth to your modern life, get ready for our next explainer, where we're going to follow Joshua right across the Jordan River to see this radical obedience in action. Thank you so much for diving into this with me.